Hey, Facebook people. I'm out doing what I do, doing deliveries and thinking. That's what I do. You know what? I was thinking about this Sunday and the message that, the pastor presented, and just the reality of the idols that are around in this world. At the base level, we can look at idols really as something that, like he had said, is this other thing that we place our worship, we place our importance into, and ultimately it's the thing that we place above God. But there is a core, there's a deep core to the human nature that every idol, like I talked about before in a previous video, is the vain vanities of ourself. Ultimately, in human nature, we take self-worship as the central core of our broken nature. Every idol we build, every idol that we follow, every idol that is in our life is ultimately us reflecting our own broken nature onto something that we can worship. And ultimately that means worshiping ourselves. You look at the gods that are spoken about in Greek mythology and so many other things, and we see the reality of this like broken thing that's in every image. No matter how powerful the god is, be it Zeus or anything else, it's ultimately us reflecting our own broken nature onto something that we can worship, and it ends up worshiping ourselves. You look at the destruction and devastation of the stories of Zeus and others. They were, although powerful in creation, how they looked, they ultimately carried the same broken things, family squabbles, deception, all these things. We create these things that are like us but more powerful so we can worship ourselves. And it's absolutely nuts to think about that we do this. We create this. We create idols. And then in the demonic realm, the demonic play off of that. They encourage this idol worship. They encourage it because ultimately they're trying to encourage us to worship ourselves. Because whenever we place ourselves above God, just like in the Garden of Eden, we find ourselves lacking. That's the situation with idols. It goes to a very core issue, just like Satan himself that wanted to be above God. He wanted not only to be worshipped, but he wanted to worship himself, that he could see himself above God. It says, the pastor brought up this weekend, this scripture that says, "Consider the members of your earthly body as dead to immorality, passion, evil desires, and greed, which amounts to idolatry." The core of that scripture is saying that idolatry at its base level is worshiping us, worshiping ourselves, worshiping our own desires, worshiping our own carnal needs, the base level things of humanity in broken form. When we actually have situations where we are worshiping ourselves, we find ourselves becoming these people that are immoral and filled with greed and evil desires. Because when we worship ourselves, a broken thing, of course, broken actions are going to come about. But we need to be able to recognize that and put dead the body, put dead the carnal, put dead the worship of self. Because when we worship ourselves, we become the most dangerous. Because when we're worshiping ourselves, nobody else matters. God desires that we would walk in a way that we would see him at the very top of our priorities, because in him is perfection, in him is wholeness, in him we see love. God isn't a God that carries all these broken things that we try to put on to our gods we create, onto the idols that just reflect ourselves. He is above our thoughts. He is above our ways. He is not caught up in the humanity of brokenness. He is above that. So when we focus on him, like scripture tells us, fix your eyes on Jesus, that's when we begin to break away from the mold of broken humanity. We begin to act in a way different than when we worship ourselves. So the question is, where is the vain vanity in our life where we worship our own brokenness? That ultimately the idol we place is a reflection of that broken nature, and we begin to worship and act in that fashion. Because when you break from that, you truly begin to know what it means to love, what it means to have compassion, because you no longer are the center of your universe. It is a God who says, I seek justice, I seek mercy, I seek compassion, I seek love for all. Because he desires, through Jesus, to break us of that habit, break us of that pattern, that we would walk in his perfect light. So what focuses you on you? Because that's where you'll find your idol. Where are you at the center of your universe? And it makes it so no one else matters. That's the thought for today. Have an awesome day.